Welcome. You have arrived at STEM City, USA, a safe and trusted community where you can find people and resources to help you become everything you are and beyond, accessible to all who reach for the stars.
Attention to brief. Welcome to the briefing room. I'm your host, Matt Bowman. I spent the balance of my career flying jets off of aircraft carriers. And now we have a show, the briefing room, a show by warriors for warriors like you. Whether you're a CEO, a military officer, or just an American citizen who wants to live their best life, this show is for you. For this show, the theme, I like to call it From Jets to Fairways. Later on, our guest today will be Mr. Stanley Campbell, an entrepreneur, a community leader, a senior executive, a man who is living his best life, who is at the top of his game. I'm reminded of a quote by George Bernard Shaw, popularized by President John F. Kennedy. And it says, "Some men see things as they are and ask why. I see things that never were and ask why not?" In this day and age, with all the change and opportunity, this show is for those who say, why not? Before we bring Mr. Campbell on, we're going to go around the world in 7 minutes. This arguably is my favorite part of the briefing room, where we talk about the world events and I give you my perspective and the perspective of those experts behind the scenes that I'm talking to. So before we get started, let's go to a quick commercial for Bayer so we can show you the 40th annual Bayer.
It's the moment in your eyes when the future becomes clear.
40 years ago, a vision was born. To break barriers, to celebrate brilliance.
The hopes of what's in reach.
From pioneers to innovators to tomorrow's dreamers, Bayer has changed the landscape of STEM forever. Great minds, great people, great futures. Join us for Bayer 40. Don't just watch history, be part of it. Bayer, becoming everything you are.
Become everything you are.
Around the world in 2 minutes. Let's start with North America. The big news right now in North America is that in the city of New Orleans, National Guard troops are being mobilized around the country. 2 of our great warriors are actually injured in a recent incident, which highlights the risk and the challenges of deploying military forces into American cities. The president has the authority to leverage military forces, especially National Guard forces, as he sees fit. But there are inherent risks to our Constitution, to our republic, as he makes those decisions. We'll see how that plays out over the next 3 months. But for my guardsmen out there, men and women, please be safe and recognize that the work that we do is in alignment with over 200 years of history and precedents. Now, the other big news is January 30th. At the end of January, the current budget deal that has been made will expire. That means 1.4 million federal workers stand the risk of being furloughed once again. So as you go into your Christmas season, the so what is recognize that come February, there may be a temporary pause on checks coming into your household. That includes active duty military. That includes federal workers who are non-essential. And that affects so many Americans. So as they like to say in the low country, in my opinion, it's time for you to tighten your belts, watch your pennies, and save your money for the rainy days that may come ahead. Let's go down to South America. I mean, South America has been hot. You see the sunny weather that I'm in, but this is nothing compared to what's going on in South America. U.S. forces are massing in the Caribbean. Venezuela has put their forces on alert, and over 80 narco traffickers or suspected narco traffickers have been killed by attacks by U.S. forces on what they call go-fast boats, speedboats in the Caribbean. On September 2nd, there was 2 strikes against a go-fast boat. The first strike killed, of the 11 people on board, the first strike killed 9. A second strike killed 2 that were floating in the water. That incident has potential to be the My Lai incident of our generation. It has the potential to be the Abu Ghraib of our generation. Tomorrow, the admiral who is in charge of that operation, the vice admiral, will go before a classified briefing at the Senate. We're going to pay close attention to how this plays out, because as you all know, in our military circles, this has been argued and debated in chat rooms and late night phone calls from well-meaning Americans from all sides of the aisle on what is and is not appropriate for the use of combat against civilians, against narco traffickers, against designated terrorists. But no matter where you stand on the issue, this is my one word of advice for every single person out there, in uniform and not in uniform. If you are ever in a position where your boss asks you to do something that might be controversial, in the words of Lieutenant Colonel David V., my Marine Corps mentor, you need to have something called a memorandum for the record. You need to write down exactly what was told to you. Put the 5 W's: when, where, who, why, and what, and stick it in your drawer and put it in a folder. So to Lieutenant Colonel Dave V., shout out to you for teaching me that lesson about memorandums for the record. They're the most powerful tool for any military or civilian person who works in a large organization. Let's quickly go to Europe. Putin has threatened Europe with war and destruction if they intervene too heavily, both in Ukraine and also in sanctions against Russia. This has the potential to change the world as we know it. So for those of you who pay attention to world events, let's pay close attention as the winter approaches in Russia, as gas prices rise in Europe, as heating costs rise in Europe. That is another powder keg of the Balkans that has the potential to shape our world and change the world that we know it. In Gaza, Israel and Hamas continue a shaky ceasefire, but it's holding, and that's good news for all of us. As we go down to Africa, there's 2 big stories coming out of Africa right now, 2 of them. The first one is in Kenya. Kenya is now investigating years of allegations of abuse by British soldiers against Kenyan citizens. That has potential to affect the entire Commonwealth, because the story that happened in Kenya happened in other countries where British forces maintain control. We'll stay close attention to that one. The other big thing going on in Africa right now is coup d'etat. One man's coup is another man's I just took over to ensure tranquility and peace and prosperity. So there's 3 countries right now in Africa that are experiencing political turmoil that have resulted in coups, and we're going to pay close attention, especially those who are in Stuttgart and AFRICOM, as to what's going on in the African continent. And then last, as we wrap up going around the world in 2 minutes, is Asia. Over 1,000 people were killed in floods, tens of thousands affected by floods. The effects of climate change are real. The causes can be debatable, but there's no doubt that our climate is changing, and that has dramatic impact on all of us, especially those of us who live in Florida and the 80% of the world that lives within 50 miles of a coastline. So there we go. Around the world in 2 minutes. That is the briefing room. We're going to go to a commercial about Career Day, and then the next voice you'll hear is from Jets to Fairways, the Stanley Campbell story.
calling all future STEM pioneers, leaders, and career champions. Join us on every second Saturday of the month for the BEA Career Day. BEA STEM Career Day is all about creating opportunities for students to venture into the world of STEM through the eyes of professionals. You'll meet mentors and presenters that will give you a sneak peek into the many options available to you in the field of STEM. Hosted by teen ambassadors, you'll find yourself among inspiring peers just like yourself that are aiming high for their future. To take part in the BEA STEM Career Day on Zoom, visit fullstemahead.us and register for the next session. Again, that's fullstemahead.us. BEA, becoming everything you are.
A world of careers unleashed. You can get it at Bayer. Become everything you are.
When you enter the Becoming Everything You Are ecosystem, you join a professional community of 50,000 plus professionals and 100,000 students. It's this incredible community. My co-host and I, Dr. Tyrone Taborn, live in this community, and it's our opportunity to bring to you the best and brightest from the Bayer world. Mr. Stanley Campbell is one of those. I mean, how often do you meet a man who has flown jets for the Navy, who has over 20 patents in his name, who has started an airline, who has gone to South Africa and helped the freedom fighters in South Africa, who has run for the United States Senate, who has bought golf courses, and who has started a tech company that impacts over 200 million Americans. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce my friend and my mentor, Mr. Stanley Campbell.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, Stanley.
Great seeing you.
And Stanley, you know, we have a tradition here on the briefing room where everyone wears an article of clothing that really reflects who they are. So I'm looking at the hat on your head. I love it, sir. That speaks from jets to fairways. What a story.
There you go. Well, we got Callaway on today, but if it was Thursday, it'd probably be Titleist. We actually work them all.
That's it. I love it. I love it. Well, listen, Stanley, let's get right to it. You know, the audience is eager. Tell us about your family, where you're from, and your childhood. Let's even go before your childhood. Let's go. Who are your parents, grandparents? Tell us the story.
Sure. Well, my parents on my father's side, my father is Jamaican. He was born in New York. We actually were looking the other day. You could see where his mom got on a boat, had the baby in New York, and 2 months later, she was back on the boat going back to Jamaica. But my father migrated here permanently at about 15 years old. Lived in New York for a while, and then he moved down with my uncle Luther Whitaker down to Miami, and he was there when he met my mother. On my mother's side, she's Bahamian. So Stirrups is a big name in Florida and as well in the Bahamas. So there's Stirrups and Galloways on my mother's side. And then you got some Cuban because my mother's grandmother was actually Cuban. But in any case, we have the Caribbean on lockdown.
You have the Caribbean on lock. It's that whole diaspora story, you know, merging, into the American dream. I love it.
That is correct. And then for me, I was born in Miami Beach, one of the first generations of Blacks who could be born there. And I have four brothers. My oldest brother was an Air Force guy. My second oldest brother was an Army guy. And I'm the third, which was a Navy guy. So go figure. The next two didn't join the military, but they served in a number of ways and are very well and familiar with the throes of the country.
I love it. I love it. And, you know, you talk about, when you talk about lessons from, from your father and lessons that he brought from New York and Flatbush and Jamaica, and then from your mother and the Bahamian side, and then all of those things coming together. What are, for the audience, what are 3 life lessons that you think that you can share that you learned from your parents?
Well, the first is that my parents were together until death. My two older brothers have a different father from me, but my father raised all five of us. The word step was never in, we were brothers, period. There was no stepbrother or any of that. That being the case, when you kind of can put a family together, no matter how fragile, no matter how rough, no matter what the neighborhood, the thing that comes out of that household is going to be something that is to be admired. And I can tell you from our household in Liberty City, we didn't have a lot, but we didn't know we didn't have a lot. And there was never any limitations to what we could or would want to do. And of five of us, none of us do the same thing. Only two of us have the same major in college. Only three of us have graduated college, and one of us with a PhD. But at the end of the day, there's none of us that did not become millionaires. And so no matter what your pathway, the issue is very clear. If you work at it, you believe in it, and you can actually trust yourself, then the sky's the limit. So for
Wow.
me, the Navy was kind of the second play. My first play was getting into Florida A&M University. Go Rattlers.
Strike.
Exactly. And so the as a C student coming out of high school, I decided I was going to study physics. And my brother kind of helped me with that decision, but a C student going to college to study physics is like unheard of. But somebody would have to tell you that. And in my case, nobody told me that. And then after, about the first 6 months, the light bulb went off. And that light bulb was the differentiation between understanding math and knowing that you could understand math. And so when people, all around the world say, well, I don't really get math. I don't really understand it. Well, it's not you. It's not your fault. It's some teacher that missed the boat in getting you to being able to get that light bulb to go off. For me, I got it after about 6 months. And then it became, I wouldn't call it easy, but it became natural.
It is natural for you. But Stanley, you went right to Florida A&M, but I want to circle back because there's a lot of nuggets in that piece that you spoke about for your family. And that the family building five boys who were all successful, five young men in Liberty City. And for those of you around the world who are listening to this, Liberty City is a part of Miami. It is a modern city. But Stanley, can you describe to them what it was like growing up in Liberty City? I mean, and also describe your brothers, because you all have, one of the most the whole range of success. You got from yourself and your older brother and senior levels of executive. You have entertainment down there with Uncle Luke. So tell them about your family, Stanley.
Sure. Well, the first thing is we were raised in a house of love. And my father used to sing to my mother, and he sounded good in singing. My mother was a beautician, but she was also like a beauty queen. If you take a picture of her and some of the top actresses in the world, you can't make a differentiation.
Wow.
But the key is that that we were loved. And my oldest brother, nobody could believe that he could go to the college. At least my parents didn't. They knew education was important, so he went to the military first and got his. He did his first 4 years in the 6 years in the United States Air Force. He was a Vietnam vet, and Agent Orange and all the rest. When he passed away, he basically had already gotten a double lung transplant. So you can tell what Vietnam did to him. He did a second tour in Vietnam to keep my Army brother out of Vietnam. And that brother's also passed away, but Agent Orange was not just limited to its deployment. It was also in the research and in the development and the like. For me, I was the third one, and they convinced me to go to college first.
Hmm.
So that 4 years of my second oldest brother, there's 5 years between us, that put us in at Florida A&M together, both studying physics, and it got him a year ahead of me.
Okay.
So, and believe me, that is not a good place to be behind him, because we took some classes together, and after the second one, I just decided I'm never taking another class because
They're like, there's one
oh
superstar,
yeah,
one other, but they're
he's
brothers.
gonna argue with the professor. I'm a quiet guy sitting there, and he gets the better grade, and I did the better work. I like, what's up with that? There's something about the prior enlisted guys that go well in college. And so, if any of you are out there, always think about that when you decide what you're going to do in your next adventure, because it is very important.
Very important. I have a friend, Master Chief Steve Haiti, and he used to tell me, he goes, Commander, us enlisted guys, we can run circles. Listen, we can run circles. So those guys are phenomenal.
Yes. And then my brother under me, he wound up being top chef in Miami and Miami Beach. He was once the head chef of the all of the airport, Miami International Airport restaurants. And then he went on to the beach, and he was one of the guys who started Art Basel and as well had beat Emerald twice in cooking competitions on the beach. So he's very well known. He's retired now, but he still gets up to the course every once in a while. I'll get him once a year at least.
Once a year?
Yeah.
And for the audience, Art Basel is going on right now. It brings the whole entire art, culinary, entertainment world to Miami for 4 days of galleries and events and parties. So for your brother to be literally the man who feeds Art Basel and the man who feeds Miami Beach, I mean, what a legacy.
Yeah, and believe me, that started with my mother, just doing beauty shows, well, way back in the day. So our interests in arts and in culinary go way back. If you look at that brother's Bernard, and he's named after my uncle Bernard Benaby, who is another Bahamian, but he was the head chef for all Doral Holdings. So he kind of got it naturally. And then there's my youngest brother, who most people know beyond any of us. That's Luther
Don't
King.
stop, get it.
Exactly. So you can imagine going through the United States Navy. I was a TACAMO pilot and all the rest, and getting into very highly classified meetings. And then when everybody's cleared the room and the lights are on, and it says, "So that's really your brother." I literally remember as the most junior person in the room, my first, significantly classified meeting where the White House is there and we're there and Looking Glass guys are there, and that was the very first statement in the room. So it's hard to come back from that, but we did okay. We did okay.
Excellent. Well, listen, thank you, Stanley, for sharing me the story of your family. Let's fast forward and get to the highest of 7 hills, that home of the Rattlers, Florida A&M University. You're there studying physics with your brother. What happens?
Well, we were there for 3 years, actually like 2.5, because he graduated, and then I left very quickly. I actually got out of Florida A&M in 3 years with 2 degrees. But I went to summer school and the like. My brother took a job with the largest chemical plant in the world at the time, which was the Monsanto plant in Pensacola, Florida. And then he wound up actually being the plant manager. And then before Monsanto sold, he actually was running the plant, had 50 years of age and 25 years in the company. And so he wrote his own retirement package. So, so he got out early. He got out of the game early. But for me, I left Florida A&M University to go to work for Amoco Production as a geophysicist. As a college student, I got into AI very early, and I had done some work for NASA. I developed a data reduction error analysis package for the Voyager 2.
Wait,
Back,
as a college student or after college?
no, this is as a young college student. I was in my second and a half year. But you get professors, they hand you the work, and you're working for, in that particular case, one student with two professors. And I didn't know what they had given me. I just knew what the problem was, and they said, go figure it out. And I developed this algorithm, which was a playoff of, they call it the least squares fit algorithm and I put it in place in a way that was very interesting. And then it flew. About 4 years later, it actually flew. And just 2 years ago, now that was 50 years ago, it is still sending back information 50 years later. And
how incredible is that you can do work as a college student? So for those who are debating whether to send your child to an HBCU, this is living proof that talent resides everywhere. How does it feel to have your work still yielding dividends 50 years later?
Well, I can tell you that about 40 years later, it got to my attention because the Bush 1 administration actually, on Bush's on the way out, he actually appointed me to the board of NASA. And so that was a big thing. And the reason was because of that work I did as a college student, and the fact that I had gone on to become a Navy pilot and was stationed at Patuxent River, Maryland at the Naval Air Test Center. So
then, Stanley, shout out to Florida A&M and to the president and the provost. I'm gonna send a copy of this so they can know the potential, and also for North Carolina A&T, another producer of engineers, STEM talent, all the 18 ABET accredited HBCUs.
Exactly.
Well done, sir. Well done.
And so from that, the aviation part, going into aviation, growing up in Florida, I always, you see the rockets go up. And I thought that for me, I wanted to be an astronaut. And so it wasn't that I didn't want to be a black astronaut. I just wanted to be an astronaut. And so I just said, okay, if astronauts study physics, that's the thing. Astronauts go to the Navy and fly airplanes, that's the thing. And so that was my pathway. And then, at some point, you now kind of start growing up, and then you start getting more direction, and a little bit of reality starts falling in. Charlie Bolden and I were at the test center together. I'm flying at TACAMO, and he's over at the test, and I literally was going to apply. And they said, well, you got a little bit more to go, so why don't you just hold off on your application? And I'm like, what's the problem? He's going to get in, and I'm going to get in, But at the end of the day, those things that are right for you may not look so clear to you at the time. So for me, I really didn't like it. I thought we could both apply and we would both get in. And if it was only going to be one of us, it was going to be me. But Charlie now has time in Vietnam. Mm-hmm. He had an immaculate record. He is already now flying with in the test environment. And so his time was right. The issue is that we've got to also know that our time is right. Mm-hmm. And so you don't let somebody else's career define what your career is going to be like. And listening to your introduction, you talked about Kenya, you talked about Africa, you talked about South America, you talked about a number of places that these are very important to us, particularly as warfighters and people who are in the warfighter environment. But at the end of the day, your day-to-day operation is very, very critical. So you keep that focus and everything else will fall into place, guaranteed.
Wow. Well, you mentioned Africa, you mentioned South America. You had a distinguished career in the Navy, but at some point you left the Navy and started working, I think, in Africa. We're going to go to a career day commercial so that young people who are tuning in can hear all about the careers that the Becoming Everything You Are conference and CCG produces. And when we come back, we're going to hear from Jets to Africa.
Oh, there you go.
Calling all future STEM pioneers, leaders, and career champions. Join us on every second Saturday of the month for the BEA Career Day. BEA STEM Career Day is all about creating opportunities for students to venture into the world of STEM through the eyes of professionals. You'll meet mentors and presenters that will give you a sneak peek into the many options available to you in the field of STEM. Hosted by teen ambassadors, you'll find yourself among inspiring peers just like yourself that are aiming high for their future. To take part in the BEA STEM Career Day on Zoom, visit fullstemahead.us and register for the next session. Again, that's fullstemahead.us. BEA, becoming everything you are.
A world of careers unleashed. You can get it at BEA. Become everything you are.
So if you just saw that commercial for BEA STEM Career Day and you're a high school student, a college student, or a parent of a high school or college student, please contact me at mbowman@ccg.mag. I would love to have your child, your son, or your daughter interviewing some of these world-class leaders. When we just left, Mr. Campbell was telling us about his transition from the Navy to Africa.
So I'm glad you remember that because the things that you do when you're young, you do with a young man's brain, a young man's body, and a young man's heart. So for me, I gotten out of the military, went to work for a small company. I had a deal with that company that if I bought an airplane, that they would lease it from me because that was the business that I thought I wanted to be in. And so I wound up somewhere around 29 years old owning a jet operation. So I had a jet airplane that was working technology with them. And I got noticed by a lady named Miss Mabusa. She was the ANC, the African National Conference's person in Washington. This is before apartheid is over. So she says, well, we need your help. And so I said, well, explain to me. The issue was that the government had moved the airline out of government ownership into private ownership. So, and they thought that was raping the country. So she says, we need the U.S. help for that. Now, you got to remember who was the president at the time and where our interest was at the time. And so I said, sure, I'll help. And that help wound up being very strategic, very tactical, because now you got a recently graduated naval aviator who understands the entirety of the international flight environment, because most of my flights were in Europe for my first 3 years. And then understands Washington because I then had a Washington stint. So my going out to the State Department with her in tow, they literally wound up saying, look, we got to deal with you, but can you leave Mr. Campbell? Because the issue is if they know full well that interest is going to affect the largest airline on the continent, and the fact that the ANC was about to take over the leadership, then that becomes an issue. And so they actually would leave me downstairs, but I was able to get Miss Mabusa and others into the meetings upstairs. Now those
Stanley, to paint this picture though, I mean, this has got to be in the, cry freedom, just as apartheid is falling apart, the ANC, the African National Congress with Nelson Mandela, is preparing to take over. I mean, this is rewriting history.
The whole of history. The whole history. It is writing the history.
Yeah.
Because now I could tell you 50 people that I dealt with, but I didn't deal with 50 people on a regular basis. The people I dealt with was Miss Mabusa, Miss Mandela, and Mr. Mandela. And then every once in a while, Desmond Tutu. That was it. And I was just turning 30. So now you can imagine when you got those kinds of people and they're silent because they know that what you have to say is real, is backable, and that they can actually challenge the United States government in areas that they should have done a lot more but didn't. And now that when they take over this government, you're going to have to deal with us as one of the most, if not the most powerful nation on the continent. So there was a lot of things going, and believe me, I for me, I took them in stride. I took 8 guys from Africa. I trained 4 of them in Washington, and we sent 4 of them to Texas to get their licenses. They were already flying. They've been flying with Algeria, flying with the Russians, and flying, but they already were flying. So the getting them U.S. licenses means the United States State Department has to back their application to South Africa Airlines. They didn't want that. Now, just to fast forward, the guy who was the head of the Air Force for South Africa 3 years ago was one of the guys that we sent to Texas. The first two guys we trained here in Washington got their license, living in my house. They killed them.
Wait, what?
They killed them. So the seriousness of what we were doing was very evident. And I mean, for me, again, I'm a young guy. I'm like, oh, I'm going to apply myself. And then now all of you guys who are still in the military, if they kill me, then there's somebody's going to stand up for that. That was my hopes. I'm telling you, everybody from the State Department on down talked me out of that. And there's no telling what would have happened. But the history is very important. And that just says, no matter where you are in any parts of your career, you are very, very important. And you may not know, like for me, I didn't know how important that was at the time. But it was very critically important because, you got ships, you got airline, you got rail. Everything else is the highway. There's no other transportation. And then when you look at the history of how the country has evolved, how that airline has evolved, and then how travel and international trade and all the rest of that, all those are implicated there. So those are the kinds of things that, again, whether you're a supply officer or whether you're flying an airplane, it really doesn't matter because the pictures of how we impact the world are very, very large. They're very, very large and very important.
So, Stanley, we're a show by Warriors for Warriors. I don't think you get any more warriored up than Winnie Mandela, God bless the dead. I don't think you get any more warriored up than President Mandela, any more warriored up than Bishop Desmond Tutu, God bless the dead. So can you give us one story, one Winnie Mandela story? That's one of my heroes.
I'll give you a kind of a happy one. So we're flying her in the U.S. Got a big airplane. We got about 30 people on the plane. And we get off in Texas, and we go to this big event. It's like a church, and they have like 10 or 12 girls who are going to greet her, and they all have flowers. And they start from like 3.5 foot tall, and they go up to about 290 pounds. And so she gets the first little girl, and she grabs her, and she picks her up, and she swings her around. You see these little feet swinging in the air. And and so you're like, wow, that is a warm embrace. And the second girl just jumps into her arms. So she wants to be picked up and all the rest. So now you get around the mid girls. These are adult-sized children, And so she picked up every one of them. But now you still got 8 more to go, or 6 more to go. By the time she got to this girl who easily was 290 pounds, very big young lady, got the flowers. Miss Mandela did her little strut. She grabbed her, picked her up off of the ground, and shook her around the same way she did those other kids. And I'm telling you, the entire room went crazy.
What?
And I'm telling you, the stage went crazy. And, the guy who was not Herschel Walker, the guy who was the big track guy, at the time he won 5 Olympic gold medals. He's on the stage sitting next over near me, and he looks at me and is like, I couldn't do that. I would not be taking my back out with that one. But this just shows you the strength of this woman. Mr. Mandela was very artistic and the like, but Miss Mandela fought the fight every day that he was in jail, and she never let go of the fight. And that's really how we got to the world, and how we got past all of the things that we know apartheid to have been successful in accomplishing.
Wow. All right. So Stanley, here we go. Coming from Liberty City, going to a Jewish high school, being one of the first Black boys to integrate that Jewish high school, then going to Florida A&M, into the Navy, into the aviation world, into South Africa when no one went international.
Right.
Then how did you meet Jesse Jackson? Tell me Jesse Jackson. How does he come in?
So that's interesting. So I told you the deal I had with the company and the school and all the rest of that. Well, I'm at the Howard Inn, and Reverend Jackson and 2 of the guys who were with him, he's kind of deciding whether he's going to run for president. He's already made the decision. So they're sitting there, and I'm, young guy, just walk over, ask for an autograph, no more, no less. And so he took the thing that I brought over to him. He's signing and said, "So what do you do? You're in school here?" Now, I'd already been in school, out of school, in the Navy and out of the Navy, and already got a company. So I said, "No, I actually have a little aviation company." He says, "Well, yeah, what's your background?" I said, "Well, I was a Navy pilot and the like." So they look at me like, because I look like I was about 18. So that's like, nah, there's something not right with this story. But okay, we're gonna go with it. And then the rest, they said, "Well, you got airplanes." I said, "Yeah, I got an airplane, and I actually got 2, and one is a jet. So if you ever need us, just give us a call." And I just left, and so that Saturday, I get a call, and the call is like kind of a little bit frantic. They're in Mobile, Alabama, and it's like, we're stuck. We're at this union conference here, and we got to get someplace else, and we have our transportation. We missed the flight, the commercial flight. They say, "You really got an airplane?" I said, "Yeah, I got an airplane." "Can you get down here to move us?" "Yeah." "Well, so what's that going to cost us?" I gave them a price, and they had no idea whether I had an airplane. They had no idea whether I was real or not. And I landed that airplane in Mobile, Alabama. Only 2 of them were at the airport. And their faces were like, when I opened that door, and their faces, it is like, oh boy, this is a whole different game. Now, the plane that they thought I had, which had taxied in just before me, was a small twin-engine prop airplane. And 2 people got out of that airplane. One was John Glenn, and the other was his wife.
Wow.
So Senator Glenn and his wife got out of his airplane, and I pulled up right behind him with this jet. And so the entirety of the election and the campaign changed that day, because now he's got a jet airplane available to him. And again, I go back to how important it is when you're in the mix is totally different than the impact that you are going to make in your life and your career. I didn't know, nor they knew, the impact of Run Jesse Run, because Run Jesse Run was really Fly Jesse Fly, because when the Bush administration was making one trip, we would make 5 trips in between theirs, because you're going to the same place. And those 5 trips also say you got to also know the rules. The rules were 1.5 times first class fare for anybody that's flying with them that's a government or others. So the press and the government. So it looks like you got to raise a lot of money, but if you're charging 1.5 times first class fare for every trip, and one person is paying you $15,000 to $20,000 per leg, meaning paying into the campaign, we wound up changing the way elections are run, because now you cannot have somebody like Reverend Jackson doing that, because now you get an opportunity to play the system. And that's just playing the hand that is presented to you and using all of the tools in the toolbox. In that particular case, it was the rules. So again, not just changing internationally, but we changed domestically. And I guarantee you, many people will say the things that we set in place for his 2 elections were the things that put Barack in a much better position, because now he has people available to him in the same city of Chicago that knew the rules because they learned them with us.
So Stanley, then, 2 key takeaways are: every conversation is an interview. Every conversation is an interview. Can you imagine had you not shared with Reverend Jackson your story, your capabilities? This is not the time. 2025 is not the time for any of you listeners to play small. Every conversation is an interview. Do not play small, and tell people what you bring to the table.
That's the bottom line. That is the absolute bottom line.
Wow.
And,
all right.
So play the game all the way through.
And play the game all the way through. And know the rules.
You got to know the rules.
You got to know the rules. You got to know the rules. So you live in the greatest country that's ever existed. The rules are available for anyone to read. So now, Stanley, now you've flown Reverend Jackson. Now take us from jets to Fairways. How do you get from there?
There's a little stop in between there. I started an IT company.
Okay.
And my IT company is in AI. So if you look up in my name in patents, you'll see some of the patents in AI, and then look at the dates, because the dates of those patents are generally when the people who are running AI right now for the world were maybe in junior high school or high school at the most.
Stanley.
So this is not, there's no gamesmanship there. So we did that for the defense and intelligence world. And when you look at 9/11 and the like, we're right in the middle of all of that. But it was that company that after I left the intelligence world, I decided I would never go back into the building again unescorted, and that I would move from, for lack of a better term, killing people to now saving people. So I shifted over to healthcare. And now today I have the largest healthcare network in the country. We message into every point of sale pharmacy in the United States. And we stop about $130 million of fraud against Medicare and Medicaid every single day of the week, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So that's called recurring revenue. So that kind of recurring revenue that gets you to the fairways.
So it takes a fortune to make a fortune. Is that what it takes a fortune to make?
That is what took us to the fairway. So I wound up getting middle of COVID. People are talking and things are coming around, and some guys asked me that, look, we need a silent partner because we're going to bid on this golf course in South Florida. So I look at it and I say, there's no way you're going to get it for that price. And I made a joke, literally a joke. I said I would pay 3 times that much for what you guys are trying to get this for. Oh, no, we're going to get it. I'm telling you. Well, the price went just short of 3 times. I wasn't on the bid. I was just a silent partner in the deal. And they called me up after the bid and say, hey, we got a golf course. So, and they didn't tell me how much it was. Well, it was 4 of us all together. And the guy says, by the next day, 2 of them are out. We didn't want to pay that much. And so now it's me and one other guy. And by that Thursday, he's out. Because now he's got to pay 4 times more than he had anticipated. And he hadn't even cleared the first amount of payment from his wife. So we're now sitting there. I'm either going to lose the deposit, or at least my part of the deposit, or I'm going to go through it. And this is what I talk about finishing. So we decided that, yeah, it was a good enough deal to buy almost 200 acres in South Florida, just 30 miles north of West Palm Beach. And if it all fell through, then fine, I got 200 acres and I could build houses or something like that. But when I got there, I decided to run it as a golf course. We were bidding against 6 developers who all wanted to build homes. The people who were selling it wanted homes built because they owned the other golf course. And so when we decided we're going to run it as a golf course, he now has a very bad business problem because I have the bigger course, the better course, and run out shape. And so we spent the last 4 years bringing it back. We call it from last to first, because now we have the absolute best course that the public can play in the entire region, period. Wow. And so when you come there, you'll enjoy a great round of golf. But in learning, just think of the places that we've talked about. PGA is also one of them. And the more we learned about the PGA, the less it became about golf and the more it became about inclusion. So we then decided we'd buy a second course, because now we've got to prove the point to the PGA that we're not just happenstance, that this is a business, and that we're coming into this business. And then we're not just coming in to run golf courses. We're coming in to make golf accessible to every single person that can hit that ball. And so we then got a third course, and that's in Gainesville. So now with 3 golf courses, Gainesville is not open yet, but the other 2 are very open and very vibrant. And now I'm telling you, we have sold out just on weddings alone. We sold out here in South Florida.
Wow.
And it's about finishing.
I'm so proud of you because, you know, we only have 5 minutes, but you said something that's so powerful, that it's about golf, but it's about business, and how you learned through the Navy and all your life has prepared you to run a business. Can you speak to that for all of our golf enthusiasts, and also let them know how they can come play golf with you either in Florida or North Carolina or wherever in the world you're at?
Well, it's a little cold in North Carolina, so y'all have to wait for me to get back there. But it's open. Believe me, North Carolina is open. North Green Country Club in North Carolina, Martin Downs in South Florida, and we invite you to come and play. For me, I was not a golfer. My wife was not a golfer. But the more we learned and were involved in the business of golf, we recognize that people like us have been left out. There's 21 John Deere dealerships in the United States, but not one of them that are Black owned. Not one of them I could buy golf equipment from, because they say golf equipment is the more advanced on the equipment. If you look at carts, you got Club Car, you got Easy Go, you got Yamaha. There's not one Black person in America that I could buy golf carts from. And then you go through fuel and you go through restauranteering and all the rest of that. And you got nobody that is impacted into the golf environment that I can actually trade with. And it's only one person that most of y'all will know that you can see on a Sunday, and now all you're going to watch is reviews on them on Sunday. Or you may hear about Michael Jordan and his operation every once in a while. So what winds up happening is when we look at how we're going to affect the PGA worldwide in the game of golf, we now take on HBCU graduates or people of color who have the ability to play at the next level. We've got a guy that we sponsored for a few years playing on the seniors tour. We have a young lady who is playing internationally that we sponsor. We have a young teenage lady who is going to tear it up at the college level come next year. And I expect that you'll see her on TV in 3 years or less. We have young guys who are at the course now, who've graduated, who work there, but my goal is not to make them instructors. My goal is that we will see them in 2 years on Sunday, the same way we saw Tiger Woods. And we keep that open because the young man that Xavier Williams, remember that name, because you're going to see Xavier playing on Sundays. He's a North Carolina A&T graduate.
Shout out to the Aggies. I love it.
And I'm telling you, we've got probably 5 guys that, not that we support, but now we've gotten the interest of others. You look at basketball players, I'm not sure Tiger's doing just so much, but he's global. But when we look at Barry Darts, the guys who are sponsoring Howard University's team, we got a women's team now started at Bethune-Cookman College. Florida A&M, we got to get them a women's team as well. And we got to basically get HBCUs with colleges, with teams across the country.
I want to help you with that. I'm going to send this to some HBCU presidents. I know you know most of them, if not all of them, but I'm going to help you with that. We have 60 seconds left. And so, Stanley, you have been a fantastic guest. Brother, my hat is off to you. I salute you. We're going to have you back because there's a whole side of this story that we haven't talked about. And that is arguably the most influential and impactful, Campbell. And that is your wife, Cheryl. Listen, Crystal and I love Cheryl. So we'd love to hear about her and her accomplishments. I'll have her on separately, and she can talk about her journey and her story. So with that, I'm asking our producers to focus in on me. I'm going to do a quick wrap up. Stanley, sir, once again, you've been an amazing guest. And then this is my final thought for today's show. The Briefing Room, a show by Warriors for Warriors. No warrior on earth has pivoted as many times successfully as Mr. Stanley Campbell. I hope that you enjoyed the show. Our theme for this show today was from Jets to Fairways. I want to thank the entire production staff. I want to thank my co-host, Dr. Tyrone Taborn, and the Bay Stars and Stripes Committee, Vice Admiral Wins, who's our national chairman. And I'll leave you with this quote that Admiral Wins shared with me this morning. And it is the one from President John F. Kennedy, which is, "Some men see things as they are and ask why." For us in 2025, I encourage you to see things as they should be or as they could be and ask why not. This is the Briefing Room. I'm out.
What if you could build your own city? A place where every child can find nurturing people to help them achieve their full potential. A place where every adult can access job training support. Where health education is abundant. Where social justice ruled the land. A place without limitations. Welcome. You have arrived at STEM City, USA. It is what every city should be. A safe and trusted community where you find people and resources to help you become everything you are and beyond. STEM City is unlike anything you have ever experienced. It is a digital twin of the world around you, only better. STEM City is about energy and soul renewal. It is more than a digital world. You can almost feel the power of live cultural events, music, and theater. STEM City promises a better future for children with caring mentors and hands-on activities with dedicated tutors to support our youth. STEM City is your passport to a healthy lifestyle with weekly events addressing our community's many issues. STEM City is your financial well-being with helpful information on wealth management, career advancement, job training, and so much more. STEM City is the community you deserve. It is the city where your dreams can come true. STEM City USA, a place in the sky that is accessible to all who reach for the stars.